$15 million, $10 million. Those are the two cash payments the United States authorized in the mid-19th century to secure the American Southwest. For that price, the map expanded to include modern-day California, Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona. On paper, this exchange gives the affair the clean, administrative feeling of a massive real estate transaction: a willing buyer, a willing seller, and a receipt for the public record. But real estate deals almost never involve an aggressive occupying army marching directly into a seller's capital city. In the 1840s, a specific ideology took hold in the United States: manifest destiny. This was the belief that American expansion across the North American continent was ordained by God. By framing expansion as a divine mandate, the American public could view aggressive military conquest as a moral imperative to spread their institutions from coast to coast. When the U.S. initially offered to buy land from Mexico, the Mexican government refused to sell off its sovereign territory. Leaders in Washington treated that refusal as a serious diplomatic insult, using it as direct justification to declare war. The resulting Mexican-American War served a singular objective: the outright seizure of half of Mexico's total landmass. By September 1847, U.S. forces broke through the defenses of Mexico City. General Winfield Scott rode into the main plaza, placing the capital under military occupation and forcing a fractured Mexican government to the negotiating table. The man sent to negotiate the peace was U.S. diplomat Nicholas Trist. But before a deal could be reached, President Polk lost patience with the pace of talks and sent a letter recalling Trist to Washington. Trist looked at the political chaos in Mexico and realized he had a narrow, fleeting window to get an agreement signed. He went rogue, ignoring his president's direct orders to come home. This document is the 1848 Treaty of Guadalupe-Hidalgo. Trist secured terms that transferred half of Mexico's territory to the U.S. for a payment of $15 million, sealing the deal with his unauthorized signature. When the treaty arrived in Washington, President Polk accepted the massive land acquisition. Then he fired Trist for insubordination and refused to pay his salary for his time negotiating. The foundational borders of the modern United States were drawn by a fired bureaucrat acting illegally against his own president. Far away from the rooms where the treaty was drafted, acquiring this land was chaotic and violent, sparking controversy even among American ranks. Among U.S. troops was a rogue unit known as the St. Patrick's Battalion, or San Patricios. They were a group of Irish Catholic soldiers who deserted the U.S. Army to fight for Mexico. Many of these men recognized a shared faith with the Mexican people. They also saw parallels to their own national history of foreign oppression, leading them to view the American invasion as unjust. The San Patricios fought against their former commanders until they were finally overrun and captured at the Battle of Churubusco in August 1847. The U.S. Army tried the captured men for desertion and sentenced them to a mass execution. American officers timed the hangings to occur the exact moment the American flag was raised over the captured Chapultepec Castle. By executing the San Patricios so theatrically, the U.S. turned them into enduring Mexican national martyrs. Their resistance highlighted that those on the ground experienced the conflict as a hostile imperial invasion. Even after the war ended, border tensions continued to simmer. This became a major hurdle for American politicians trying to find a viable southern route for a new transcontinental railroad. In 1853, the U.S. sent James Gadsden to Mexico with a specific objective: secure a narrow strip of land in the disputed Mesilla Valley to build those train tracks. Gadsden negotiated this deal under the explicit threat of renewed military action. He sat across from Mexican President Santa Anna, who needed cash to suppress domestic rebellions and could not afford another war. This map shows the final piece of the territorial puzzle. For $10 million, the U.S. acquired 29,670 square miles of land, finalizing the southern border of the present-day United States. The Gadsden Purchase demonstrates that American financial diplomacy in the 1850s relied entirely on the looming threat of the American army. Zooming in from the macro-political maps, we find a harsher reality. People suddenly found themselves living inside a new country, without ever moving. These were the Tejanos, people of Mexican and Spanish descent who had lived in regions like Texas long before the border moved over them. The Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo guaranteed that Mexican Americans would receive equal protection and U.S. citizenship. In practice, incoming American settlers viewed them with deep suspicion and treated them as enemies. Tejanos faced systemic discrimination. In towns across the Southwest, they were subjected to violent expulsions, and incoming settlers frequently seized their farms and ranches without compensation. While native Tejanos were being displaced, ships were arriving in Gulf ports, bringing massive waves of new American and European immigrants to repopulate the territory. When diplomats redraw a map, they uproot and overwrite the cultures that already call that land home. Between the Mexican Cession and the Gadsden Purchase, the United States spent exactly $25 million. But the formal treaties and the exchange of cash served as a legally palatable facade to dress up the brutality of manifest destiny. The United States conquered the American Southwest by force, using the language of real estate to issue a receipt for an empire.